And here we go. That was Church of the King with Come Just As You Are. If you're just joining us, then a warm welcome along to Fridays. This is my story, and a very warm welcome to our first guest for today's show, who actually has been here at UCB headquarters in Stoke-on-Trent earlier this year. We'll understand a little bit more as to why, but welcome along to This Is My Story, Lisa Hartley. How are you doing today, Lisa?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm very well, thanks for asking. A decent
Good.
night's sleep, very productive morning so far, and hopefully that's set to continue. Right.
Awesome.
Well, let's get straight into your story because you became a Christian in quite an interesting way, I have to say. As I was reading the notes,
hmm
I was really blessed to see that God had broken through in your life through relationship with other people. So, tell us your story and we'll unpack some of it as we go along.
Sure. So, as a child, I grew up in a non-Christian household. It was a very loving home. It was wonderful. You know, parents would do anything for me. But we didn't go to church. We didn't sort of talk about God or anything. My dad would always say, God bless at night. And that was the only sort of connection I had with God. Um, so, so growing up, I loved music. That's always been part of my life.
Mm.
So it wasn't until 2019 that I actually became a Christian. So I've had a long part of like over 80% of my life has been non-Christian
Yeah.
way of living. Um, and it was actually through a friend of mine, my longest friend. Her name's Kaylee. She won't mind me saying. And I was in a point of my life where I had got married, I had kids, I had the house, and I was sort of so preoccupied with that my husband and I just sort of became distant,
Mm.
and we just weren't on the same team anymore. Um, so something inside me was like, "You need to phone Kaylee." I just knew. So I phoned her one day, and she said, "Right, let's meet." We met up, and she told me her testimony. She'd literally become a Christian recently herself. She shared her testimony with me and the testimony of another friend of hers. And when you just wholeheartedly trust someone, you've known them like forever. So
Yeah.
I knew that there was something in this. It wasn't just like anyone had gone, oh yeah, go follow Jesus. Like this was Kaylee, my best friend. So I was like, okay, there's something in this. Um, so she began to pray with her family, within her church, and God started to speak to me through music, which is what I've always loved. And prayers just started to be answered, and I was just totally just like, whoa, what is this? I'd never had any experience of prayer or anything before in my life. It was totally new. Um, until one day I think I just knew. And I remember firstly just I just fell to my knees in my bedroom. um I just fell to my knees and I looked up and I just said, it is you. Like I just knew in that moment that God was there and I was held and everything would be okay. um and then I just remember just feeling this complete overwhelming sense of peace in my body. I can't really describe, but I was in the kitchen, I was just dancing around, I was just full of joy, even though the situation that I was currently in was, really tough.
Mm.
So yeah, that's the story.
So that's kind of the introduction. And
It is,
then you
yes.
started to take some pretty practical steps in terms of exploring faith some more, didn't you?
Yeah, so I knew at that point that I had to get to church. I just knew, and I remember one morning, Kaylee, she said, "Oh, I found this church. It's just down the road from me. You should go." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I know I need to go." And I remember on the morning I was trying to take the kids along, and we were late, and there was just obstacles in the way. And I remember thinking, no, I really just need to get to church. And I got there late, and I'm pretty sure that worship had already started. And I walked in and I stood at the back with my two children, and they were singing "Bless the Lord, oh my soul," and I've never heard it before, but I sang along and I cried my absolute heart out. It was just like a complete, as I know now, Holy Spirit moment. Didn't have a clue what was happening at the time. Um, and yeah, they started praying for me. I ended up going on an Alpha course shortly afterwards, and that literally blew my mind because everything I had sort of felt and experienced but had not understood then became so much more clear when I started to learn. So it was, I look back and I think I'm so glad that I learned in my heart before my head. Like some people grow up in it, don't they? And they don't
Yeah.
really have the heart connection, but it was the other way around for me. So I didn't understand any of it. And then I was like, oh, okay, now I understand.
Yeah,
Um,
and quite a steep learning curve, but Alpha's a great way of doing that. But I know within that particular church, there were a group of people that were praying for those who were
mhm.
doing Alpha, and God was speaking some pretty specific things to them that related to what you were going through, wasn't he?
Yeah, so there was a prayer group that used to get together and pray for the Alpha group every week before we met, and I remember they were like, "Oh, the prayer team have had this picture for someone," and every time it was pretty much, "Oh yeah, I think that's for me." Um, it was just so spoke into my situation directly. It was just mind blowing. I It was just all so new and just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you recognize that God was real through all of those experiences that you've mentioned so far.
Hmm.
And it was during the Alpha course that you heard a particular song that
It
had
was.
quite a profound impact on you, didn't you?
So at the start of every session, they played a worship song, and at that point, obviously having not grown up around the Christian community, I had no idea of this whole genre of music. I'd never heard any of it before, and I remember we watched this video of Carrie Job singing "Forever."
Mm.
And I remember thinking, wow, like she's got an incredible voice. This is such a beautiful song. The words are so inspiring. And I just thought, wow, I had no idea this existed. And I didn't know at the time, but that would be quite an important song for me later on.
Well, I may see if I can squeeze it in before 10 o'clock today,
Ah,
if
awesome.
we have time. But in terms of your love of music, to
Mm,
segue a little,
yeah,
your dad played the gentleman who caused one of the biggest traffic issues in Coventry many years ago when I lived there,
right.
Bruce Springsteen.
He
And
did.
you loved singing along to Disney songs, as many of us do. Then in the early 2000s, you go into your rock phase. You're
I
into
did.
bands like Linkin Park, Alien Ant Farm, Papa Roach, Muse, Incubus, Korn, etc. And music like that sometimes has really life-giving lyrics, and
Hmm.
at other times is quite opposite. But I know that it helped you to feel heard, and it helped you identify with those songs. So, how did you find the contrast as you started going along to church? Because that's not the type of music that you hear on a Sunday morning or a Sunday evening.
No. That's right. I mean, as a teenager growing up, that's a difficult time anyway.
Mm.
And without God, I heard this music and I felt heard at the time. It was songs that were talking about real sort of emotional situations, and it was really raw. And I thought, yeah, I feel heard through that, and really connected with it. Obviously, now I realize the power of words, um, but have always loved the heavy music. And then, obviously, then becoming a Christian and getting into sort of the worship scene, I joined the worship team at church, and I started to sort of, well, number one, acknowledge the words, and it didn't sort of sit right with me. I thought, if I'm a Christian now, I can't really, and I don't really want to be singing, you know, words that are not giving life. They're more
Mm.
sort of pointing towards death and destruction.
Yeah.
Which is not healthy. Um, but at the same time, I was leading worship, and some of the songs that I was singing at the time, I wasn't leading. I was sort of a backing singer, and some of the songs that I sang, I just forgive me for saying this, but I felt some of them were quite boring and samey.
I would
Um,
agree.
it's just my sort of taste in music, and I thought, oh, this doesn't really feel like me, but I have to be like this now because I'm a Christian and I want to do the right thing. Um, so I think in that I became a little bit resentful, and I thought this is not who I am. But I thought that I had to push down that sort of side of me that loved the heaviness and loved the rock music. So that was quite a tricky time of sort of, yeah, it was hard to sort of manage in my own brain what I should do.
Yeah, and some of that is definitely going to be shown through frustration with what's
Mm,
currently taking place, as many people involved in worship will attest to sometimes that things don't quite hit the mark in terms of the way we look at things
mm,
sometimes. But obviously, it's more about how God accepts our offering of worship. You'd had a lot of musical experience. You'd been in an original rock band in your friend's garage when
yeah,
you were around 16 for a few years, lots of gigs in pubs.
yeah.
Your daughter actually played a part in you starting to get involved in singing again after a significant break of not singing. So, talk to us about the specifics of how she inspired you to get up and start singing again.
Yeah, so I think after my teenage rock band that I was in, I sort of left music behind a little bit with the family. I just sort of thought, that's not who I am anymore. I don't do that. I don't go and play gigs. I've got a family. And I just sort of got a bit preoccupied, to be honest, with all of that, with the job and that. And it wasn't until obviously joining the worship team, getting into church, and then hearing my daughter, bless her, she is gifted. She has the most beautiful voice, and she's always singing constantly. She drives my husband mad sometimes because she just does not stop singing. Um, and obviously, I would sing along with her, or we'd do harmonies and things. And she'd be like, "Oh, Mum, that's really good." I was like, "Thanks, sweetie." And it just made me think, I've always loved that, and I've really just let it go. Um, and obviously, learning about having gifts and talents, they're not for us. They're not for us to keep. They're for us to share and serve others. And so that's when I thought, yeah, let's join the worship team at church. And in that time, I also decided to start a covers rock band because through the sort of resenting the sameness, I thought I need an outlet for this heaviness somehow. Um, so I started a covers band with some friends, and that was really good fun.
Yeah, and I know that as well during that journey of maybe not feeling like you quite fitted the mold of
Mm,
the stereotypical worship team member, you
sure.
took some time out from leading worship in churches. You felt like there was a lack of authenticity, and I so relate to this. It's
Mm,
been 4.5 years. I got back up with the band on Sunday, just gone after a
right.
long break because I knew I was lacking authenticity in what I was doing. So I completely relate to that because it's so important that there's an authenticity and a purity of heart when we're trying to lead God's people in praise and worship and hopefully lead them into his presence. And sometimes in doing that, it has an impact on our relationship with God. And I know for you that the covers band became more of a focus for you. But then in October 2023, you turned to Kaylee again. So talk to us about the conversation you guys had.
I did. So just as a little pre sort of mention, after the covers band, that sort of fizzled out because the drummer left. And then I was like, right, I want to do a originals band. I want to make up songs. I want to sing of my faith, but I still want to keep the heaviness. So it was at that point that I sort of became really resentful because I loved that so much. I loved it so much that's when I sort of just drifted, and without even realizing it, I drifted just gradually, step by step. And like you say, it became more about worldly things than the actual real original reason why I started it in the first place. Um, and I realized this one day, and again, I turned to Kaylee, bless her. I don't know if she's listening at the moment, but she just said the most, well, the best thing that she could have said to me. She wasn't judgmental or, she didn't tell me what to do. She just said, how's your relationship with Jesus right now? And I
Mm.
was like, oh, I remember saying, well, it's there. But, I wasn't properly leaning in. I hadn't completely run away, but I wasn't leaning in as much as I had been. And I realized that I had drifted, and I knew that things had to be brought to the light and that it couldn't carry on this way. So that's when I turned to her, and God basically just came in an instant and literally pulled me out. And in hindsight, I don't know how else it would have worked out any better, even though it was horrible at the time. It was what had to be done. I had to be pulled out of the situation that I was in order to move forward.
Yeah. And I know with everything that was going on, you felt like there was a process of being pruned and
Yeah.
refined and corrected, and really sorting out your relationship with God was what had to be priority during that time. But you also found yourself in the place where you felt scared to sing again. So we fast forward to January 2024, and you go along to a worship evening, and there's an immediate answer to prayer that unexpectedly gets you back up on stage. What happened?
Yeah, so after all of this happened, I just thought, how can I go back to singing again? Yeah, massively pruned, corrected, like you say. And I was just at a evening worship session at our church, and I was sort of praying in my head and singing along to the worship, and there was a spare mic on the stage. And I just remember sobbing lots. And I sort of prayed in my head and I said, okay, God, if I'm meant to sing again, someone's going to come up to me and tell me to get up on that spare mic on stage. And I'm not even kidding. Within a few seconds, my husband walks over. He was at the other side of the room. And he goes, why don't you go and get up on that spare mic? Literally, almost word for word, as I had prayed it in my head. It was the most bizarre thing. So I think that song finished, and then it seemed like it was the end of the session. I thought, oh, no, 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 no. I won't do it. But I just felt this really strong sort of call to I had to go up. So I sheepishly walked up on the stage and tapped the mic to see if it was on and said, I'm sorry, I don't normally do this and I don't feel very comfortable, and I just explained what had happened. And I said I'd been through this journey with music and didn't feel like I could sing again, but here I am. And it was just a moment where I just knew that singing was just like what I was supposed to do. It was where I was meant to be. And we ended up singing Gratitude by Grandin Lake. And I remember just, the words, you've got a lion inside of those lungs, get up and praise the Lord. And I just knew in that moment that this was my path and I was following the path that God wanted me to be on.
So everything got stripped back. God showed
uh-huh.
you who you truly were. And then fast forward just over a year, You end up
Yes,
coming along to a worship weekend at the UCB Kingdom Academy,
I
and
did.
something pretty significant takes place during a songwriting session with Lauren Thomas, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It was a great weekend, I must say. And we had this songwriting session where she was on the piano, and we were in a small group, and she was just playing some chords, and she just said to open the Bible on. I can't remember if she told us what scripture or she just said open the Bible, and just sort of said, "Does anyone want to just sing along?" And just sing out the words from a piece of scripture. And I remember I did that, and it just felt so sort of natural to me. It just came, and I knew in that moment, the song didn't come from me. It was very much a God thing. The words through me, and the melodies through me, and I just thought, not this is easy, but I just thought, why am I not pursuing this anymore? Why am I not writing songs anymore? Like this is my thing. Um, and I had actually just started learning the piano in the November before. So for a few months, I've been tinkering around on the piano,
Yeah.
just purely so I could write songs again. Because the band I was in previously would write the music, I would write the lyrics and the vocals. So I learned purely so I could write songs. So after that session, I got home and I thought, I can do this. Um, so I had some words come to me, and I sat down at the piano and I sort of, had a go. Thought, oh, is that the chord? Is that the chord? And just worked it out and just played a really, really simple melody on the piano. Um, and the song just developed from there. Um, Originally, it was just real simple piano, and I took it to a producer who, well, used his gifts and talents to make it into what it is now.
Now, Sharon Ferguson, who heads up our UCB Kingdom Academy here,
Yeah.
she told me about you, and she sent me a
Okay.
copy of the song that you released on the 30th of May of this year. I
Hmm.
heard it and I was astounded because I'd not heard anything like it. And we listen to a lot of music here at UCB, as well as in our own time during normal life outside working hours. And I'd not heard anything quite like it. And I knew there must be some kind of story to share. You've shared some of your story. And obviously, the Kingdom Academy Worship Weekend has played a part in you creating this song and releasing it. For people that are listening today, there's actually been a few developments in terms of the worship weekends as part of the Kingdom Academy. And I think partly inspired by you, Lisa, in addition to the usual worship weekends and worship weeks happening next year, for the first time, the worship training weekends are going to have specialist days where there is a focus on songwriting. And I'm expectant that we're going to see more new songs that happen because of this. Now, the songwriting workshops are going to be taking place in February, April, October, and November of 2026. If you would like any of the dates, you can contact me via WhatsApp or email, and I'll send you all of the information. But I also need to mention that in addition to the songwriting workshops within the worship weekends, they're going to be offering full day songwriting workshops. That's happening on Thursday, the 16th of April, and then again on Thursday, the 8th of October, my 50th birthday. So if
Hey.
anyone wants to, shout me a little gift, maybe that could be something. There will be details on all of that very soon on the UCB Kingdom Academy website, which is ucb.co.uk/UCB Academy. And there's something else that I've also been asked to mention, which I'm going
Hmm.
to mention after the news. But if you're looking to get a gift for someone this Christmas, you may be able to save 10% off all the Kingdom Academy courses. But we're almost out of time, Lisa. So we're going to hear your song, Renovation for Kingdom's Cause is your artist's name. You've got about 40 seconds.
Okay.
Well, as what we're about to hear.
So this song's called Renovation, and it's basically just my testimony. It's everything that I just spoke about to you. So I hope that you enjoy it, and through listening to it, it speaks to you, and that you become closer to God through it. Thank you so much, Matt. It's been great.
It's a pleasure. And if you'd like any links to follow for Kingdom's Cause on social media, I've got all the details, but make sure you give this a listen and you share it with other people. Let's get a bit rocky on UCB2. And we're clear.